code signing is a process much more than any isolated key management or certificate management issue. The problem has basically moved on from key storage to key access or access to these key management systems. A lot of organizations are still flying blind here. My first step would always be make sure that you have a centralized infrastructure. Make sure that everybody in your organization knows what the valid certificates are. Choose the platform wisely that you use. Make sure that you understand the possibilities and the limitations of the platform, because otherwise you will probably just try to make up for weaknesses with processes, and that's typically not a good place to be.
With software, trust isn't a certainty. Behind the dozens of applications and programs that we use every day are layers of trust that most of us never see. As supply chain attacks increase and code signing requirements evolve, organizations are rethinking how they build, sign, and ship software. You're listening to Trust.ID Talk, and I'm your host, Michelle Davidson, and today I'm joined by Stefan Wenig, CEO and CTO at SignPath, to break how new baseline requirements are changing the game and how to keep your supply chain rolling as the landscape evolves. Hi, Stefan.
Hi, Michelle. Thanks for having me.
Awareness for the need for code signing has been growing in recent years. There's been recognition around strengthening code signing practices, with the CAB Forum introducing new baseline requirements this year with reducing the maximum validities. So with the growing awareness around code signing, what are some of the other areas that you feel organizations might still be missing?
I think what we're really missing here is that code signing is a process much more than any isolated key management or certificate management issue. And also code signing is part of a larger process of secure software development, of DevOps, and of operations. We also need to be aware that there's a lot of players involved here that don't necessarily understand the whole picture here. So it's important to lay it out for everybody who's involved and make sure that all the little practices really work together to achieve the ultimate goal of security. So I think it's not a big surprise that we see a lot of incidents, high-level incidents, severe incidents happening in the industry that basically have nothing to do with key management or certificate management practices. We just need to get a better awareness of the big picture here.
I love the analogy of the picture and the puzzle, and how code signing is one part of that puzzle. I know sometimes it's often referred to the infinity loop, but the puzzle piece is just one part of a much bigger picture. I really like that analogy. So I mentioned the baseline requirements. Could you give an overview of what they are, previous changes, where is it now, and what could organizations maybe expect in the next few years to help put those pieces of the puzzle together?
Yeah, so in the last 2 years, two things were happening. So first, we saw a change in the FIPS requirements. So initially, we had a separation where we had normal code signing certificates, or OV, or organization validated certificates, that basically had no requirements at all. And we had extended validation certificates that required a FIPS certified device for the keys, meaning that there is no way that the key can be copied from the device, and from that follows that the key cannot be stolen, right? So I think a lot of code signing happens in the Windows ecosystem, where most organizations were already using extended validation certificates, but that basically made it the law of the land to have code signing keys on dedicated devices. But of course, that only applies to anything that's ruled by the CAB Forum, and that's mainly public certificate authorities. So there is basically still no regulation about what happens with code signing keys outside the typical code signing ecosystems of Microsoft, Apple, Google, Java. So if you're looking at Linux, if you're looking at firmware, if you're looking at motherboards, even there has been a major incident, there is still no regulation. But yeah, that's a big step, right? So at least there is an industry recognition that code signing keys have to be secure. You cannot just have them in files. It's just reckless. And a year later, we had a change that said code signing certificates by CAs cannot be issued for up to 3 years any longer, but just a single year. What will we see in the future? I'm hearing that Microsoft is going to kind of unify extended validation and organization validation certificates. And of course, the big thing, the elephant in the room here is post-quantum cryptography. with wildly varying expectations of when those things will be around or will be required, when quantum computers will be able to actually break codes, right? We don't know it, but we have to prepare. Now, with signing, we don't have the problem of copy first and decrypt later, right? If you have a properly signed file, maybe the signature won't be safe in a year, but nobody can kind of decrypt any sensitive information. But you should be prepared to re-sign things on a moment's notice if something unexpected happens, right? The other thing, of course, is crypto agility. Every organization should prepare in every aspect of their crypto procedures to be able to switch to quantum safe algorithms. And currently we see that this is happening. HSM vendors are implementing the NIST certified algorithms. The first vendors are already there. Everybody will follow shortly. What will probably be a bit later is all the platform vendors supporting MLDSA in their signature formats, right? Like Microsoft, and everybody's still working on that. And it's nice if we can create MLDSA signatures, but it doesn't help us anything if Windows and other systems won't recognize them. So this is probably another year out, I would guess, but it's just a wild guess. So crypto agility is the key here.
It's really interesting. You mentioned that crypto agility has come up on the podcast a number of times from different guests. And you mentioned earlier around automation, crypto agility, post-quantum, they all sorts of play together in that bigger picture. So, you're focusing on the smaller picture of the systems and how they work, the DevOps that you mentioned earlier. But if you take that step back in the bigger picture, that is looking at how the workflows of the organizations fit within what they're trying to do, right?
Right. Yeah. You need to know what's going on. That's the first step. All right. If you don't know where your keys are, if you don't know what certificates have been issued in your organization's name, well, then you have your work basically figured out for you. If you have all these things centralized, that probably still doesn't mean that you know what everybody's doing with it. All right. If you're just assigning access permissions to keys and certificates, that doesn't really give you a good idea of what's being done with it. And due to the nature of typical signing architectures, you don't usually get the information on the side of the key management systems. You could hash codes, right? You cannot really gather any data from here, and so you might have some configuration data that goes with that allows you to get some statistics or usage data. But I think a lot of organizations are still flying blind here and basically don't know what certificates are there even, or if they know what exactly they're being used for. And that's the first step, right? And we can go from there, right? Once we know it, the next question becomes how flexible is the configuration system that you have here? Like, do you have to go into every single development team and have them review their build scripts and exchange key format, command line options in every kind of place? Or is it more like a central switch where you can just say, this project should use that certificate now? That's a big difference too.
So how can organizations but kind of prepare for those future industry shifts that you talked about? There's expectations of change, given that your estimations on the timelines, but particularly to ensure that development and security teams are aligned on what they're trying to do. What can organizations do now besides getting an overview of their current certificate landscape?
So what you often do in that situation is you have some kind of certificate discovery mechanisms, but it usually works for things like web service. It doesn't work as well for code signing because where would you start discovering that if you don't have it managed already? My first step would always be make sure that you have centralized infrastructure, make sure that you have centralized certificate procurement and key issuance, make sure that everybody in your organization knows what the valid certificates are. Make sure that you know that nobody has like a credit card contract with some certificate authority that you're not even aware of. So that's the first thing. Make sure that the procurement channels are clear, and for internal certificates, for internally managed keys, make sure that everybody who uses these keys knows where to get them from, right? So you don't have like bilateral relationships between development and operations where they agree on some key exchange mechanism. This also has to be part of the central management. And then, as a security person, I would just say go ahead and monopolize this thing. You have to control that, right? Whenever somebody needs a key certificate, it has to go through some kind of central infrastructure and some kind of centralized process. And once you have that, at least you know who has access to what certificate, right? And everything down from there, like if you want to have more information, if you want to have more control, my suggestion would be to choose the platform wisely that you use. Make sure that you understand the possibilities and the limitations of the platform, because otherwise he will probably just try to make up for weaknesses with processes. And that's typically not a good place to be.
You mentioned around making sure you have a vendor that is suitable for your business needs. With the maximum validities, that is going to impact workflow. So that relationship you hold with your vendor is going to be super critical, because right now, it's been put in place as of March this year, but that could change at any point, as we've seen across the PKI landscape industry. It's happened to many different certificate types. So having that vendor in place that you trust and can work with on those changes is just really crucial.
And also have like a central place where you can change these things without reaching out to every single development team in your organization and, giving them a how-to and a deadline.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I think that concludes kind of a really interesting conversation for us around the importance of code signing and how it is putting it into practice. So we do like to ask our guest, Stefan, one final question. What is the one piece of tech you could not live without?
Well, of course, I'm addicted to my phone like everybody is, right? So guilty. I'm not a tech gadget person, really. I try to keep that thing out of my personal life. So it's probably the phone. Who can live without a smartphone these days, right?
One piece of technology can sometimes rule our lives. That is all we have time for today. So if you have been listening and you have a question about this topic, or there's another topic you would like us to discuss on the podcast, please leave us a comment or get in touch at Trust.ID Talk at GlobalSign.com. Thank you for joining us today, Stefan. It's been an absolute pleasure. And to everyone listening, this has been Trusted Talk. Until next time.